Hello and welcome to Carol Nash Inside Bikes. I've been riding this, the new Honda NT1100. It's what Honda calls a new breed of tourers. If you used to have tourers, then they sort of went into sports touring category. You had sports bikes that were the top of the range models, and then touring bikes took that sporty edge. Now with that came terrific performance, but also the limitations of sports bikes. So you had quite sporty, a bit cramped riding positions, and not necessarily all the comfort that you wanted on a long trip. So along came the adventure bikes, complete opposite of what the sports tourers were in terms of comfort and riding position and all that, the luggage capacity, but they still had good performance. Modern adventure bikes have huge amounts of power. Something like the Ducati Multistrada has more power than sports bikes had not so long ago. And then, of course, adventure bikes got bigger and more off-roady, and kind of lost the point of road touring a little bit. So along comes Honda and others with bikes like this. This is basically based on the Africa Twin, hugely popular bike for Honda. 1100cc parallel twin, and this bike has the same engine as the Africa Twin and the same frame, but this one runs on much lower suspension and on 17-inch road wheels. And it has a lot of creature comforts. It has really good weather protection, it has really good screen and lots of luggage, so it makes a lot of sense. And in that sense, it kind of is that new breed of tourers. I must admit, it's not going to be an advertiser's dream. Honda marketing guys are going to scratch their head, because you take an Africa Twin and you can just wheelie it across desert and that's your video done. But with this, I'm not quite sure what you do. You have an adventure bike rider festival, great festival, but I can't see a sensible touring rider festival happening anytime soon. But it's a bike that does the job very, very well. So what this bike is then, nuts and bolts. This is a 12,500 pounds motorcycle. A grand more if you want the dual clutch transmission, which is Honda's automatic gearbox. It's a very, very nice gearbox. However, this manual one is really good too. That box is really sweet. You can shift up and down with or without the clutch. It really does work very well. There's no quick shifter, but the box is sweet enough that you don't really need it. In terms of power, you've got 100 horsepower and 104 Newton meters of torque, which is not up there with the latest, biggest adventure and sports and touring bikes, but it's plenty enough. You get lots and lots of pull from that twin engine, and it's really usable power. There's not been a moment where I've needed more. In fact, there have been times when I have dialed down the engine performance levels a little bit, which you can do in the customizable rider mode, just to make it a little bit more relaxed in town, especially on wet roads. So yeah, the key thing that separates this bike from the Africa Twin is the lower suspension. This has a Showa 43mm forks and a Showa rear shock. 150mm travel, so still a fair bit of travel. It's not bad at all, but it's not quite up there in the sort of adventure levels. And the wheels are 17-inch wheels, so you get a much more sportier touring kind of tyre. And the bike, it's slightly different steering geometry as well, partly because of that front wheel being smaller, but it turns really quickly. For a big bike, and it is a big bike, it's 238 kilos, it turns really, really sharply and quickly, and it feels light and nimble, if you can say that about a big bike like this. Even pushing it around is not too bad, it's nicely balanced. Of course, it is quite bulbous. I mean, this bike has the Voyager kit, so the panniers are standard, but the top box comes with the extra extras as come the comfort seats and the pillion comfort foot pegs. Now I don't know what the foot pegs are like, but this seat is probably the most comfortable I've had on a motorcycle ever. It's absolutely sublime. You could combine with that nice big screen, which is, by the way, adjustable, but it is a bit of a faff to adjust it, I'll be honest. I just cranked it up, left it there, fine. But with the screen, there's also wind deflectors, like little, they're almost like hand guards, but they're bolted onto the bodywork. And there's more deflectors at the bottom. They are really, really good. You are really protected from the elements. And the riding position is really nice and relaxed. You have loads of room, and it has a 20-litre tank, so you can quite happily do probably about a couple of 100 miles, I would have thought. And I don't think you really need to stop during that, unless you need to stop for a cup of coffee or something. But the bike will just carry on. Of course, there's no such thing as a perfect bike, and I think the big downfall of this one is the switchgear. I mean, it is something else. You have 14 buttons on the left-hand cluster. On the right, you only have 4, but that's a lot to navigate, especially if you're wearing thick gloves. There's a lot of cool electronics on board. You have 5 ride modes, 2 of them customizable, and you can select the engine power and traction and engine braking levels. There is a touch screen, so I think for the next generation Honda just needs to simplify a bit, because the actual electronics that are there are brilliant. One of the best things is the Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, whichever system you use. You can plug in your phone, as I've done. I've put it in this bag here, and you can basically see your screen on the dash, and you can use whatever your navigation map app of choice is, and you get it on the screen. You can do your calls, text, anything on the screen, and it works perfectly. It's so much better than many of the manufacturers' own systems, which they have developed. I mean, Apple knows what it's doing, so it kind of makes sense to go with that. So top points for that. Cruise control is also very good. The only problem with that is that the controls for the cruise are on the right-hand cluster. So you have to manage the throttle whilst you're setting the cruise, which is doable, but it just takes a little bit of practice. Overall, it's a terrific bike. There's lots of luggage as standard, 65 litres between the 2 panniers. Tank bag and the top box are extras. You get a lot of standard equipment as well. You get the center stand is standard, the luggage is standard, cruise control is standard. You pay 12,500, so it's not a cheap bike, but you do get a fair bit for it. And it is a terrific bike to ride. Very comfortable. It's not the most exciting perhaps, but it does exactly what it says on the tin. It's a big tourer, it will do the distance, and it will do it in great comfort. I just need to ride it a lot more. So I'm going to go and do that, and I'll catch you next time on the same channel. Thanks for watching.